Greetings and welcome back to the No Channel. This is Bernadette Johnson. I'm also known as Keziah or Kizzy. And today I'm coming to you with another video titled Trump on Crystal Mangum's Confession, the Spiritual Roots of the Black Woman versus White Patriarchy. Now in this one, I'll be discussing Donald Trump's comment regarding Crystal Mangum's so-called confession video where she says she lied about getting raped. Of course, I'm not going to say the R word, so I'm going to say raped here. About how she says, when she says that she lied about getting raped by the three Duke lacrosse players back in 2006. I'm saying so-called confession for a reason, because this whole thing smells like one big lie. And if you watched my last video, you would have heard my theory on why I think the whole thing is a sham. In this video, we'll be discussing how this whole case and its latest development reflects a bigger phenomenon that's taking place between the Black woman and white patriarchy. Now, I was emotionally involved with this case when it first broke way back in 2006 for obvious reasons. The alleged victim was young and Black and female like myself, and it took place in a neighboring city, it took place in a neighboring state, only a couple of hours away from me. And the alleged perpetrators were young, white, and male. So as you can imagine, this case was a perfect recipe for racial tension. You know, it was a very racially charged case, so it was a perfect recipe for racial tension, and it took the media by storm. So I closely followed the case and carefully read every article I came across that reported on the case. I continue to keep my eyes peeled for any updates on Crystal Mangum or anyone involved in the Duke case, even after the story faded from the news. I still kept my, an eye peeled for any kind of updates. So even when others deemed her to be a liar after the charges were dropped, I didn't change my position because I believe she was great, like she said. And given this latest update, you would think I would have finally changed my viewpoint because, Crystal herself, she herself confessed to lying. But no, I still didn't change my stance. I instead of something, when I saw where she said that she admitted that she lied, something shifted in my spirit. It didn't change my stance. Something shifted in my spirit when I heard her make her so-called confession. So when this update first broke earlier this month, I eagerly awaited to see if Trump was going to chime in, and I was not to be disappointed. Although I'd always believed there was a spiritual significance to this case, waiting to see if Trump would weigh in would confirm it for me. And why? Because Trump epitomizes the white patriarchal structure. And as of those of us who are woke and those who are spiritually attuned with the signs of the times, know that the clock is ticking on the era of white dominance in the world. The sun is setting on the era of white patriarchy. However, they're not going to go down without a fight, which is why Trump is the president-elect today. This is white patriarchy trying to take its last stand and delay the inevitable. Trump is on borrowed time and the signs show it. Now, before we discuss this any further, let's read what he said about this new development on the Duke lacrosse case. So this is an article from the USA Today, and this is dated December the 16th, 2024. So it's not a long article. So it reads the title is Trump Weighs In After Duke Lacrosse Accuser Admits Falsifying Rape Allegations. President-elect Donald Trump on Monday doubled down on his criticism of Crystal Mangum, the woman who recently revealed that she lied when accusing three Duke University lacrosse players of sexual assault and rape in 2006. I thought it was a hoax when it happened, Trump said during the press conference at Mar-a-Lago, his members-only club in Palm Beach, Florida. I didn't believe the woman. Mangum, a former exotic dancer, confessed on a podcast appearance last week to fabricating allegations that three Duke lacrosse players, David Evans, Colin Finnerty, and Reed Seligman, SA, and raped her during a party in 2006. Mangum is in prison on unrelated murder charges and was speaking on the online show Let's Talk with Kat, hosted by former model Katarina de Pasquale. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing her name. I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong. And I betrayed the trust of a lot of other people who believe in me, Mangum said during the interview. Trump on Monday reiterated criticism that the accusations destroy the lives of the three accused men after he made similar comments on a social media post on Saturday. I don't care what they got. Their lives have been destroyed, the president-elect said. Their lives have been shortened by what took place. And now the woman admitted that it never happened. Evans, Finnerty, and Seligman were cleared of any wrongdoing in 2007 by then North Carolina Attorney General Roy Cooper after substantial questions were raised about Mangum's accusations. By that point, however, Duke's men's lacrosse coach had already resigned and the university had canceled the team's season. The three men later sued Duke, former university president Richard Broadhead, and the city of Durham, North Carolina, where the school is located. Evans graduated from Duke in 2006. Seligman transferred to Brown University, and Finnerty went to La Jolla University of Maryland after the incident, according to the Duke Chronicle. Those kids were beautiful kids with beautiful families, Trump said of the Duke scandal on Monday. They were, in some cases, will never be the same. A jury found Trump liable in 2023 in a civil case for sexual, if you understand what I mean, sexual abuse and defamation of author E. Jean Carroll in 1996. Overall, the president has faced accusations of sexual misconduct from at least 19 women. The former president has denied any wrongdoing. So that includes the article. And just to add a little humor, it didn't go unnoticed that the article deemed it necessary to point out Trump's own sordid past and accusations and lawsuits by women who accused him of violating them. So it wouldn't be any surprise that he would ally himself with the since exonerated Duke lacrosse players. His alliance with them gave me the confirmation I needed to know that the Duke lacrosse players hail from the same rank as Trump, and those who presently serve in the high-ranking governmental and corporate positions where corruption runs rampant and drastic measures are taken to keep the corruption hidden from the public. That was when I knew the message I was to share. After I read that article, what he said, I knew what message I was to share with the world. So this brings me to the Duke lacrosse case, the infamous Duke lacrosse case of 2006, and how it's been used to wage psychological and spiritual warfare against the Black community, especially against Black women, since the case first broke. On March 13th, 2006, two exotic dancers, one Black and the other Black and Asian, were hired to perform at a house in Durham, North Carolina. Dancers were told they would be performing for a bachelor's party of about 5 men. However, when they arrived, they were to see a house of around 30 young men. Although taken aback, they went ahead with the performance until some of the guys got rowdy and spoke of sodomizing them with a broomstick. At that, the dancers abruptly stopped performing, went to the bathroom to collect their things, and quickly left the house. However, a number of the guys followed them outside to the car and talked them into going back inside and finishing their performance. After some coaxing, the young women went back inside to finish performing, but once they were back in the house, they got separated from each other. This is when Crystal Mangum alleged she was grabbed by 3 of the partygoers and pulled into the bathroom where they proceeded to assault her. At some point before the performance, Crystal believed she had been drugged after accepting one of the drinks offered by the partygoers. So her memory of what took place became fuzzy at some point. Following the assault, the other dancer, whose stage name was Nikki, came into the bathroom and helped Crystal fix her clothes, and they both left the house and rode off together in the other dancer's car. At this point, Crystal was out of it and was unable to tell Nikki where she lived. At a loss on what to do, Nikki drove to a Kroger's grocery store parking lot and told the security guard that she found this woman, meaning Crystal, walking on the street past a house where men were yelling racial slurs at her. At this point, 911 was called, the police came, and Crystal was taken to Duke Medical Center where she gave her report and was examined. There was evidence to support that a rape occurred, and charges were eventually filed against 3 Duke lacrosse players by the then district attorney Mike Nifong. However, after much media frenzy, all charges were dropped against the players a year later, and they were completely exonerated. Nevertheless, Crystal Mangum carried on with her life. Like the Duke lacrosse players, she was also a college student, although she was a bit older. She went on to graduate from North Carolina Central University. Not only did she graduate from college, she fought back, determined for her voice to be heard. In 2008, she held a press conference where she finally spoke for herself and to formally announce her writing a memoir about her life and, of course, the Duke case. In one article, it says part of the proceeds from the book purchases will go to help battered women. Once her book was available for purchase, I was all too excited to read it because I was not to be disappointed after reading it. The book was wonderfully written and colorfully illustrated the trauma she underwent throughout much of her life. One of them being as a teenager, she had been allegedly gang raped by 3 men, one of them being her own boyfriend. After reading her story, I had a better understanding of what led her to make the choices she made on that fateful night of March 13th, 2006. Remember the number 13, because I'm going to revisit it. I was also proud that she did not allow the denial of justice to destroy her or cause her to crawl into a hole somewhere. You can imagine my dismay when she popped up in the news again sometime in 2010, where she was arrested for allegedly assaulting her boyfriend, burning his clothes, and a number of other offenses. The case was settled, and once again she faded out of the news. And then, bam! She was back in the news again the following year, 2011, facing attempted murder charges for the stabbing of her boyfriend. Now, this was a different boyfriend from the one in 2010 that she was charged with allegedly assaulting. And when he later died from the injuries, the charges were upgraded to murder. However, Mangum and her team disputed the stabbing as being the cause of his death and claimed it was malpractice by Duke Hospital that caused her boyfriend's death. The murder case went to trial, the unaliving case went to trial, and she was found guilty and sentenced to 14 to 18 years in prison, where her expected release is 2026. According to an article in 2019, a new report from a renowned pathologist found that Crystal Mangum was not responsible for her boyfriend's death. Dr. Cyril Ruich, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, wrote a report stating after he had successful surgery, he went into respiratory distress, and the doctors believe they placed a tube in his trachea to help him breathe. She claimed she stabbed her boyfriend in self-defense, and the police corroborated that the injuries she sustained supported her claim of self-defense. Evidence suggests her boyfriend was beating her. Following the pathologist's report, Crystal filed a lawsuit to compel the North Carolina medical examiner the North Carolina medical examiner to review the autopsy. But in April 2023, the medical examiner concluded the stabbing was the official cause of death, and Mangum appealed, but the judge declined to hear her case in July 2024. So to some, this was simply, they would say this was simply her karma for lying about getting raped and ruining the lives of those 3 young men. As for me, I share no such opinion. I suspect this was all orchestrated by the rich and powerful, infuriated at the audacity of this black working class woman who was an exotic dancer and had an arrest record to defy the establishment by calling out and exposing atrocities committed against her by white boys whose families are associated with the rich and powerful. Her actions unleashed some very dark and powerful forces against her. So, was this just a case of a young poor black woman going against the rich and powerful? No. This case heavily involved the supernatural and the occult. Let's start at the beginning. The alleged rape took place on March 13, 2006. The recent so-called confession where she said she lied about the rape went viral in the news on Friday, December 13th, 2024. Remember I said, remember the 13. Here are the things we need to pay attention to. The number 13, Friday the 13th, and the years 2006 and 2024. After researching the number 13, I learned that this number is associated with the divine feminine and creativity. There are 13 lunar cycles within a year, which is also the average number of menstrual cycles a woman has a year. The moon always has been associated with a woman. 13 is also associated with death, birth, creation, fertility, and blood. And just to interject, if you all watched my Carly Russell series that's on my channel, you would have seen all the interesting and notable events that took place on July 13th, including Carly Russell's disappearance, Sandra Bland's death, and Trump's attempted assassination, to name a few. Friday the 13th is also a very special number in the divine feminine order. Yet the number 13 is demonized, associated with bad luck, and seen as taboo in much of Western culture. As we all know, numbers have spiritual meanings, and they also carry energy. This is all too evident in the Bible. But the Bible even has a book called Numbers. This is why Yah gave Israel appointed times to offer sacrifices and to hold feast days. They are not allowed to sacrifice and hold feast days when and where they chose to. So why is that? It's because certain days carry a certain energy or spirit. But you know what? The wicked know this too. This is why they orchestrate certain events to happen on certain days. Have you ever noticed that events such as mass shootings or high-profile cases such as the JonBenet Ramsey mystery took place on and around Christmas time, December 25th? As we know, December 25th ranks high on the calendar of the occultic world, as well as other holidays where they perform ritual sacrifices. With that being said, the wicked powers that be purposely choose to release stories on particular days and dates. Numbers and dates carry energy, and each one has its own unique energy and spiritual significance. Depending on what the powers that be are trying to accomplish or unleash, they orchestrate certain events to take place at certain times to harvest and harness the energy that is released surrounding that particular event. The viewers and the readers' reactions to these stories also release energy into the atmosphere that can be harvested and harnessed. When people react to something, they are releasing emotions. And emotion is energy in motion. As stated earlier, Crystal Mangum made her so-called confession. And yes, I'll keep calling it that. I'll keep calling it so-called because I don't believe for 1 minute she was lying about getting raped that night. This was a false confession. As stated earlier, the story of Crystal's so-called confession hit the news widespread on Friday, December 13th. Friday the 13th. On the screen are all the news media outlets that reported on this story on December 13th. Actually, the vast majority of news stories released this story on that date. Look it up yourself if you doubt my word. Friday the 13th is a very special number in the Divine Feminine, as I stated earlier. In part 4 of my Carly Russell series, I talked about the Divine Feminine, how Black women epitomize the Divine Feminine earthly form. She is the original woman, and she also possesses the highest concentration of melanin above all other women. Looking at Crystal Mangum, it's obviously she's a highly melanated woman. Her alleged rape occurred March 13, 2006, as I said earlier. And we know 13 is a special number with the Divine Feminine. It appears Crystal Mangum's was targeted by design. Now, that's not to say her alleged attackers were aware of the significance of that date, but the dark spiritual powers behind the act did. They allegedly attacked this highly melanated woman in the form of grape, on a 13th day, a day when her divine feminine energy was most potent. Grape was a way to harvest her energy. Doing a grape, the victim is in a heightened state of distress where much energy is released. Not only that, the alleged grape took place on Monday. Monday is the moon's day. This day is named after the moon goddess Luna. However, don't get caught up on it being named after a goddess. The point is, Monday is associated with the moon. And the moon is one of God's or Yah's creation. And the moon has always been associated with a woman. And speaking of the moon, on the date of the alleged rape, March 13, 2006, it was a full moon. And even as I'm recording this video, I'm bringing this message to you on a Monday, the moon's day, January 13th, 2025, exactly 1 month after the release of Mangum's so-called confession, which was, of course, December 13th. If you're not going to believe this, and you are not going to believe this, but on this very night, y'all, we have a full moon. January 13th, 2025, we have a full moon. You cannot make this up. Now, let's look at the year when it happened. The year was 2006. If you add the numbers in that year together, you get 8. 2024, the year we just left, was also an 8 year, which was deemed as the year of exposure. The number 8 is associated with karma, and what goes around comes around. And as we all know, much was exposed in 2024, especially in the entertainment industry. But what if I told you that 2006 could have possibly been a precursor to 2024? By making claims of rape and pressing charges, Crystal Mangum, along with the district attorney of Durham at the time, which was Mike Nafong, they exposed and uncovered the sick and unsavory behavior of the white elite. And what was worse and most embarrassing, they were put on blast by one they deemed as the lowest of the low. Think about it. Crystal Mangum, a black woman of dark hue from a poor working class family, one who worked as an exotic dancer to get through college and had the gall to out these young men who were from the upper echelon of society with bright futures ahead of them for the great of the likes of her. That was unthinkable. She and the DA had to pay and pay dearly. So if you haven't figured it out by now, let me go ahead and tell you. What took place with Crystal Mangum at that house party on March 13, 2006 was a ritual. A ritual that release some dark and powerful energy. And speaking of dark powers, remember the Carlisha Hood case, where the media tried their best to vilify her and her son and brandish them as unalivers? I don't want to say the word, but once the truth came out, the media was forced to backtrack and clear their name under the operation. The media was forced to backtrack and clear their name. But under the operation of the dark powers in high places, revenge against black women was sought when it came in the form of Carly Russell the following month. The Carlisha Hood story happened in June. The Carly Russell story happened in July. So it was just 1 month later. Because they couldn't stand to see black women celebrate this victory, and we did. When we saw Carlisha Hood's name get cleared, we celebrated, and they couldn't take it. And see what they did? They did a psyops attack. And they set Carly Russell up to look like a liar and seeker of attention. And those of you who watch my series on Carly Russell know that I don't believe it was a hoax. Although I don't necessarily believe it happened the way she said it did, I do believe some kind of paranormal event took place. Like Carly Russell, I believe this so-called confession by Crystal Mangum is just that, another psyops attack against black women. By having Crystal Mangum's so-called confession go viral on Friday the 13th, the powers that be who control the media figured this would send a shockwave and a major tsunami of guilt, shame, and embarrassment throughout the black community, especially among black women. Notice those are all negative emotions. Given Friday the 13th as a special number in the divine feminine, the desire was to harvest and harness all the negative emotions given off by black women in response to this story. A day when the black woman's energy is most potent. Energy they can harvest for their own empowerment. But I have a feeling that they did not get the kind of reaction from black women that they had hoped with this latest development. Why? Because I didn't see one popular black female YouTuber or social media content creator, or a popular one, making a video lamenting over it. Not like how they were made videos on about Carly Russell. I mean, many black female content creators were making talking about the Carly Russell case. So given we are nearing the day of reckoning and judgment of those who rule the world for the past several centuries, they are doing the most to try and delay the inevitable. That's why the Pope opened 5 sacred portals instead of the usual 4 during the Jubilee year, which is 2025. They are trying to stay in power. Now, I will revisit the Pope and the sacred portals a little later, so please keep that in mind. As their day of reckoning nears, they know that much of the scandal they've successfully concealed for decades upon decades is going to start resurfacing. And once the floodgates open, there will be no stopping. And the Duke Lacrosse case is one of them. After the charges were dropped in 2008, nearly all media sources branded Crystal Mangum as a liar and a false accuser. However, that wasn't enough. They wouldn't be satisfied until the woman at the very center of the case broke and said she lied. Even saying she forgave them, which is often asked of black people when they've been harmed by a white cop or a white person, it wouldn't suffice. That wouldn't suffice. Even a complete exoneration by the then Attorney General Roy Cooper wasn't enough. Why wasn't it enough? I'll explain it later. Okay, pardon me, I need to take a little sip of water. Okay, so with Trump speaking out on behalf of the Duke Lacrosse players who are white, privileged, and male just like him, it confirmed the solidarity and codification of the white patriarchy. It may come as a surprise to most, but the black African woman and white patriarchy has a dark and ancient history. You might say, no, that's not right. It's the black man and white supremacy that has a long history. Well, while both may be true, it is the black woman who has been the ancient enemy of white patriarchy since the existence of white patriarchy. And the black man played both sides, where they served as both the enemy and ally to the black woman. What if I told you the first rulers of the Vatican were ancient African women who were high-ranking priestesses and prophetesses known as the Sibyls? Yes, the Vatican, where the Pope now sits. Remember I told you to keep the Pope in mind in the portals? We're about to get into it now. The ancient world rulers did nothing without first consulting these Sibyls. The Catholic Church stole many of the prophecies or oracles of the Sibyls, plagiarized them, and compiled them in the canonical books we know today as the Bible. You can actually find the Sibylline oracles in Volume 1 of the Old Testament Pseudepigrapha. You can learn much more about who the Sibyls were and how they were sought out by world rulers for their wise counsel, and also how they came to lose their power in the book titled The Sibyls, the first prophetess of Mami Wata, and the theft of African prophecy by the Catholic Church by Mama Zobi. According to this book, many of the Sibyls hail from African tribes that were sold into slavery via the transatlantic slave trade. As a word of caution, be very careful with this book, because it lumps the righteous prophetesses with the wicked prophetesses, who worked witchcraft and practiced paganism and dark arts. It is also lumped with the Hebrew prophetesses and priestesses who were not Israelite, and this book also speaks disparagingly of Apostle Paul. Y'all willing, I'll do an extended commentary on this book in a separate video, where I'll give further clarity and clear up the confusion a book like this could cause someone who's new in their spiritual walk. Given the Vatican was once the ruling seat of the black woman, the powers that be are terrified that she's going to return and reclaim what's hers. This explains why the Pope opened 5 sacred portals during this Jubilee instead of the usual 4. By opening the 5th portal, they believe they can unleash a power and force that can keep them in power. They're getting desperate. And for added measure, let me provide additional proof that the powers that be see the black woman as an ancient enemy. Thanks to the YouTuber Vicky Dillard, she brought much attention to this video of an Israeli singer by the name of Lior Narkis performing at a concert for Israeli soldiers shortly after the October 7th attacks on Israel, supposedly by Hamas. In this video, this singer Lior Narkis is heard spewing a very derogatory speech against Gaza. The city Gaza, called Aza in Hebrew, is a very ancient city that was once a part of the kingdom of Judah or Yehuda. In the video, he's speaking Hebrew, but the translation of what he's saying shows in the caption. According to the translation, this is what he said. Gaza, you black woman, you trash, you bitch. Gaza, daughter of a huge whore, like your mother, Gaza. Gaza, you whore. While I don't know Hebrew, I do know some Hebrew words and phrases. As I listen, I could pick out some of the words. And if you want to watch the video and hear it for yourself, just go to the X account I have on the screen. And also, I will pin the link to this video in the comment section of this video. So the question to be asked is, why when an Israeli referred to Gaza as a black woman, when we know the Palestinians are not black people? You may see a black looking person here or there among them in the media, but that's it. And not only that, he calls Gaza the daughter of a huge whore, and also calls her the B word. Why was the worst thing he could think of to call Gaza was a black woman? What are black women called in hip hop culture today? Bees and hoes. Even during the time of slavery, the black woman was stereotyped as Jezebel, meaning she was an immoral woman and sexually loose woman. So that can also translate to be and hoe or whore. So you say, what in the world do these Sibyls, the Pope, and Gaza have to do with Crystal Mangum and the Duke Lacrosse case? I'm here to tell you it has everything to do with it. Ever since the white patriarchal takeover, the black woman has been placed on the bottom rung, at the bottom rung of society, where she's branded as a B word and a whore. Yes, 2006 was indeed a precursor to 2024. As stated before, they are both 8 years where you had the black woman versus white patriarchy theme being played out before the world. In 2006, you had Crystal Mangum, a black woman, versus white male Duke Lacrosse players. In 2024, you had Kamala Harris, a blackish woman, versus Donald Trump, a white man, in the 2024 election. And it appears in both cases that the black woman was defeated. It appears. What I'm about to say next may take some of you aback, but I'm asking you to please stay with me. This is what I truly believe is a divine revelation from the Most High. Crystal Mangum may appear to be a low-ranking nobody in the world, as stated before. She's a former stripper with a criminal record. But believe it or not, her ranking is high in the spiritual realm. It's even possible she's a descendant of one of the Sibyls I just mentioned. It's possible. And somehow the powers that be know this. I can imagine they know through their own dark spiritual counsel. This is why the dark forces in the form of the mainstream news and high-profile people like President-elect Donald Trump and former Attorney General and former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper made it their business to condemn Crystal Mangum and exonerate the Duke Lacrosse players. This case was spiritual warfare at its finest. If Crystal Mangum was such an insignificant person with no standing whatsoever, why was such vitriol aimed at her and such measures were taken to destroy her? Ordinarily, if any of her standing, someone else of her standing was to come against such powerful people, they would have been laughed off the stage and it would have been back to business as usual. They wouldn't be taken seriously or given another thought. But what made Crystal Mangum different? First and foremost, she's an Israelite, one of God's or Yah's chosen. Like the people of Israel today, she's spiritually broken because she's disconnected from her heritage and culture that can fully connect her to her divine spiritual source, the Creator. Yah, the Creator, is not showing her favor at present because she's in a state of rebellion against him. As it says in Deuteronomy 28:25, Yah shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. The case with Crystal Mangum illustrates this perfectly. Even after the charges against the Duke Lacrosse Duke Lacrosse players were dropped, Crystal Mangum spoke boldly at a press conference where she stood firm on her story. She even wrote a memoir and toured school campuses to bring more awareness to the essay or sexual assault against people like her. Personally, I admire her for her boldness. Unfortunately, she didn't have on the whole armor of Yah, as described in Ephesians 6, and therefore she was smitten before her enemies. According to her memoir, she had a troubled history with men, which started in her early teens, and a string of very abusive relationships. This left her with unhealed trauma, causing her to go from one bad relationship to another. And this was what the enemy used against her. Knowing her history of getting into relationships with abusive men, the enemy knew this was the perfect way to set her up in order to take her down. And when I say the enemy, this could have been natural or spiritual, or both. Although she stood boldly, the fiery darts of the enemy eventually took her down, which is how we got to where we are now with her making a false confession. So, Crystal Mangum, if you're within the sound of my voice, please hear me. It is Satan's desire to sift you as wheat, as he desired to sift Peter as wheat in the Bible. This means Satan wishes to break and tear you down until you are completely destroyed. But as Jesus, the Messiah, prayed for Peter, I will be praying for you. You fought long and hard for almost 2 decades against a very powerful enemy, but you were not equipped to withstand them. So they are having their way with you right now. In order to defeat the enemy, you have to fight with the right weapons and have the skill and the know-how to use them. This is not just a legal battle, but a spiritual one. And to fight a spiritual battle, you must have spiritual weapons. This was a message the Most High placed on my heart to address directly to you. So like Crystal, Israel as a nation is in a fallen state. But be that as it may, the powers that be know the Most High hears his children and attempt to use us as a go-between to intercede on their behalf. They know our standing with the Most High. Given Crystal's ranking in the spiritual realm, having her admit to lying, calling the once accused Duke-Lacrosse players her brothers, asking for their forgiveness and saying she loves them, they believe this will somehow stay the hand of judgment and prevent their exposure. But guess what? They are sadly mistaken. Because what was done to Crystal Mangum on the night of March 13, 2006 has been recorded in heaven. As the Bible says, heaven and earth is a witness against us all. So no matter what's done or said regarding that case, the truth is always going to remain what it is and will always stand. Their reckoning and the reckoning of this country and the powers that be is coming, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. They're bringing Trump back as an attempt to salvage white patriarchy and white supremacy, but Trump's end is very near, and so is the white patriarchal establishment. Israel is about to enter the second phase of the awakening, where the Israelite woman, aka the black woman, is to take the stage. Yah the Most High is about to take Israel's awakening to another level. And just like the Israelite nation, the Israelite woman is to be awakened to who she is and the powerful role Yah has given her to play in these last days. This is why the adversary, the devil, is going to come at her hard and heavy. And this is why we as women of Israel, daughters of the Most High, must be fully armored up in the spirit. As attempts were made to erase the existence and great contributions of black civilizations around the world, great measures were also taken to erase the contributions of the black and Israelite women from the ancient writings. I'll expound upon this more in my book commentary on the Sibyls. If you need more understanding of the woman's role in the last days, please check out the videos I have on the screen. The one, Miss Messiah, the revealing of the feminine era by Brother Akwete, can be found on my channel. And the other, the return of the divine feminine, is it foretold in Bible prophecy, can be found on the channel of Brother Matt D. Talford. I hope and pray that who all hear this message will be blessed by this word. It is of the utmost importance we view what's going on in the world around us with our spiritual eyes, because if not, we can miss a lot and won't be able to connect the dots. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like, share, leave a comment, and subscribe to this channel. Until the next video, be blessed.